Hey everybody, we're back. Well, I'm back, kind of, sort of. This is episode 6. We're only in episode 6 because I'm doing like an episode a month now. This one is a month late, but you know, these days we just get them when we get them. That's how we do these episodes. I hope after this, I'll get back to my usual. And I know I say that every episode, but I kind of mean it this time. But yeah, this is episode 6. And today we got Kirrah. Kirrah's back.
Good day.
Good day, mate. So yeah, Kirrah's been gone for, we don't know. We were trying to figure out what Kirrah's last episode was.
I said September.
I'm almost certain it was Gene Spangler. No, not Gene Spangler. Vicky Morgan with Sal. Does that feel right?
Sure.
I don't know. Can people hear you with that mic that low? Probably
Is it low?
Not. Probably not. I got the feeling Vicky Morgan was the last one.
That I did?
Yeah, with Sal. Because right before that.
Oh, I did do one with Sal. I forgot about
that.
I don't remember what occasion that was.
Vicky Morgan was the one that was dating the dude who was the heir of the Bloomingdale's fortune.
But it was, what was it for Christmas?
Hell no.
It was a holiday, wasn't it?
It was definitely not for Christmas. You were just starting Harry Potter.
Oh. So it was not Christmas.
I don't remember that. Like, what is time? I can't even say. But yeah, that was a long time ago. But anyway, whatever. You're here now.
That is true.
And today we're going to talk about the terrible crimes of Andrea Yates. You don't know her at all. Mama gave me this one.
Of course she did.
Yeah. And I decided to do this for a number of reasons. I decided to do this episode not only because my mother gave me a great topic, because she did, but also because I knew nothing about it, which is always exciting. Even though I heard this woman's name before. But I'm doing this also because I firmly believe just because every woman has the power to be a mother does not mean that they should. And this is coming on the eve of Mother's Day. Perfect episode. Also in 2025, women are being forced yet again to procreate, to be your incubators. Okay. And we are people that live on this planet under certain conditions, and not all conditions are good enough to create life. And I think it's
Most
okay
conditions aren't good enough to create life.
Thank you. And I think it's time that we talk about that. Andrea Yates is a prime example of that. I had a comment get a little traction on TikTok where I talked about disliking kids, and people said that my reason was not valid. And I believe that is the most valid reason on the planet to not have children. Because it's like, do you fucking hear you? You should never tell a person that doesn't like kids to have kids. That's ridiculous. Not to say that I would ever harm children, but that is definitely a valid reason for a person not to have kids. But I say that to say that this is how children get hurt. That's how children get hurt. Like, I love humans, okay? I love them so much that when they are young, I want them to be nurtured and raised and cared for by people who love them. Why is that so insane? I know that I'm not one of them, okay? And that's a valid fucking answer. I don't care what anybody says.
And I'm still not having kids.
Thank you.
Because I love kids, I'm not having kids.
Thank you. And additionally, I'm also in a tight spot. The universe put me in a position where my body will no longer be able to carry children. Okay. I'm having a robotic assisted hysterectomy on May 19th at the tender age of 39. Now, that's due to several fibroid growths in my uterus, but the surgery diminishes my chances of cancer in the future. And that is very important to me. And it also rids me of discomfort and bleeding. So while I'm able to still like produce eggs, I probably won't be able to carry. I definitely won't be able to carry. And I'm not planning to produce. Still, again, I don't want to. And that's my choice. So leave women alone. That's my thing. Like we are not your things to control. And the patriarchy only exists because we are the creators of the world and men don't like that. So that's really what this episode is kind of going. That's the kind of like avenue this episode is going to go down. We're going to talk a little bit about motherhood. We're also going to talk a little bit about, not really about marriage, but just forcing women to do this shit. This is just a bad idea. Not every woman on the planet should be having fucking kids. It is what it is. I don't understand why you think just because someone is capable of doing it, that someone should. Just because somebody's body can doesn't mean someone should. I am capable of strangling you to death. That does not mean I should. It's just
okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Just because somebody should, just because somebody can does not mean that they should. Okay. And so for this episode, I read Are You There Alone? The Unspeakable Crimes of Andrea Yates by Suzanne O'Malley. And the poison on this episode is the Fleur de Paradis. It is a beautiful cocktail that I found that is 2 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of lemon juice, 1 dash of orange bitters, a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, 1/4 ounce of grapefruit juice, and 3/4 ounce of elderflower liqueur, and Perrier-Jouet Champagne chilled. Okay. You would pour those ingredients in a cocktail shaker with ice. You shake them until they're chilled. You strain it in a coupes glass, and then you top it with the champagne. Of course, we know. You should know by now. You do not pour effervescence in a shaker. That is stupid.
No, do it.
Do it and then record
dare
it
you.
and
I
then
double dog
post
dare
it
you.
so I can see it.
I dare you, stupid fuck. Do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sip. All right. So let's do this. Now this is gonna be a journey. So I would also like to say, if you know anything about Andrea Yates already, then I do not have to disclaim. This is going to be a story of child death off the rip. I've only done I've only done a couple of cases like this, but I've done a lot of cases about mental illness in women, and a few of them have been, well, no. I did Lori Dan and I did Christine Chubbuck. Christine Chubbuck killed herself on TV. She didn't kill a child, but Lori Dan killed a child. The spiraling, the mental illness, we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on how the systems failed her. We're going to focus on everything that was ignored. We're going to focus on actually religion too, because that plays a part. So we're going to focus on the bigger part. As you know, too, as I talked about politics for the last 4 episodes, we're going to focus on, just a friendly reminder, I don't weigh into like the trials and all that. All that bores me to tears. I like to get into why a person does what they do. And then, yes, they went to jail. Oh, okay. Yeah, they killed themselves. What, you know what I mean? We kind of brush past that at the end, and then whatever. But I don't like to kind of like lean in too much of the trial and like, the media, none of that. I don't do any of that. We focus on like how they got where they got, so we can get a better understanding of how they ended up committing these awful crimes. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning. Who was Andrea Yates? Now, Andrea Pia Kennedy was born on July 2nd, 1964 in Houston, Texas, to Judah Corinne Kohler and Andrew Emmett Kennedy. Now, Judah Corinne Kohler grew up in Nazi Germany, starting off real nice. She was an interpreter. She met Andrew Kennedy during the British occupation when he was an Air Force B-24 navigator. Now, after the war, her father worked at Ford. It's like, who didn't work at Ford? I feel like everybody, like there has been several, Ford employed the world at some point, because honestly, I feel like there has been multiple cases that I've looked at where there has been a father that worked at Ford.
I guess it's just one of those jobs that's clearly easy to get.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a starting point for most men. And her mother was a school teacher. Now her father was eventually lose his job, and her mother had to work at JCPenney to make ends meet. She worked there for 20 years before retiring. Andrea was one of 5 children. She had 4 older siblings, and Andrea grew up in the Roman Catholic family. Now, she was quiet, but she was extremely smart and disciplined. She attended Milby High School in Houston and was captain of the swim team. Her former classmates recalled that she was extremely friendly, but she was reserved. She was high achieving, but unfortunately, she had problems with depression and isolation, even in high school. Now, she did have close friends, but she stayed focused on schoolwork. And in high school, Andrea showed early symptoms of mental illness, though they weren't fully recognized or treated at the time. She reportedly battled with bulimia.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, even with all of that going on, Andrea was in the National Honor Society, and eventually she graduated valedictorian in 1982. Again, I'm like, damn.
Good for her.
Wow. Now, after high school, Andrea attended the University of Houston, and then she transferred to the University of Texas School of Nursing, where she earned her nursing degree and became a registered nurse. She then began working at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, where she specialized in oncology. And there, she was still very quiet and introverted. And she was competent and compassionate about her work. Quote, one of her first experiences of depression followed a failed relationship when she was 24. The issue was sex before marriage. Andrea's virginity was becoming a heavy burden to her. So now we're starting to kind of like see where there's probably some religious psychosis creeping in. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Then in the fall of 1989, Andrea would shockingly introduce herself to Russell Rusty Yates. Now, she was shy, but she wasn't that shy. Andrea had recently moved into this complex after a brief period of living with her family post-college. And Rusty, who was a NASA engineer, he was working at the Johnson Space Center, was living in the same apartment complex.
A NASA engineer? Oh, she better get it together.
Period. Andrea caught his eye while sunbathing by the pool, and Rusty struck up a conversation. Later, one night, girl, be quiet. After taking herself out to dinner, Andrea knocked on Rusty's door and asked him if he knew who had dinged her car in the parking lot. It was just a reason to say hi. She was just like, just popping through.
I know that's
now,
right.
Later that month, she left a note on his car asking if he wanted to stop over after work sometime. They quickly bonded over shared values and a mutual interest in faith and the simple life. And they started dating shortly after. Now, Russell Rusty Yates was born on September 6, 1964, Virgo. Sip to that. Yeah.
Virgo man.
Yeah.
Not so much.
In Nashville, Tennessee. Now, Rusty was raised in a Methodist household. So Rusty attended DuPont Senior High School near Nashville. He was an athlete, active in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where he played football. There's a lot of problems here. I mean, we talking Virgo. We talking Methodist. We talking South. We talking football. There's a lot. Like, there's 4 red flags. Like, I got 4 problems.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'm technically born in Tennessee, but I got 4 problems. Okay. He was voted Mr. DuPont. Now we're talking popular. So not only is he a football player, he's a jock. Now we got problems because he was pretty popular. He showed leadership qualities in high school. He dropped out after realizing, he graduated 3rd in his class.
He
didn't drop. He graduated 3rd in his class and went to Auburn University on a Navy ROTC scholarship. And he dropped out after realizing that the Navy wasn't for him, and he didn't take the football career any further than college. But Rusty eventually graduated and earned his degree in engineering. So he's smart. He's a smart dude. After graduation, he began working at NASA as a computer engineer in the Space Shuttle Vehicle Engineering Office. Now, Rusty shared an experience he had with friends on his 25th birthday when he got drunk. And Andrea said, quote, "Rusty, I've got something important to tell you. And I'll understand if you don't want to see me anymore." Pause. Mm-hmm. She said, "I don't drink." Rusty was like, "Okay."
I'm like, that's the problem?
Okay. Now, Rusty's father was a drinker, apparently, and Andrea's brother and sister had drinking problems in the past. So she was thinking that that was going to be like a thing. Like, oh, you clearly drink. I don't, like, because I'm not gonna hold you. Like, as a drinker, I would probably struggle a little bit with somebody who like vehemently didn't drink. It's one thing to say like, I don't drink. It's another thing to be like, I am very against drinking. You know what I mean? Like, so like I couldn't date somebody who was in AA.
Oh, well, no, that's a past issue.
Yeah, like that's an issue. Like you cannot be around me if you have been in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I am going to turn you out. You are going to be back in Alcoholics Anonymous messing with me. Like, no. So Rusty definitely didn't have a problem with Andrea not drinking. In fact, they shared a commitment to a devout evangelical Christian lifestyle. And Rusty introduced Andrea to his friends and religious mentors, who were very interesting characters. Their names were Michael and Rachel Warrenecki. Now, this is where things get a little funky. First, let's talk about evangelical Christians, because they're a problem right now. Because evangelical Christians, a lot of the motherfuckers are Trump supporters. They interpret the Bible literally. So to them, salvation comes through personally accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. That's number one. Not just because, not just being part of the church or doing good deeds. That's not enough. That's not enough. You gotta go through a spiritual rebirth to truly be a Christian. That's the only way. Evangelicals feel called to share their gospel to everybody on top of that. And then they feel like Jesus' sacrifice is seen as the only way for humans to be saved from sin and eternal separation from God. They are often politically conservative with social conservative values on like family, marriage, sexuality, abortion, religious freedom, and education. And Michael Warrenecki was a fundamentalist Christian, which means he was even more rigid. The Warreneckis are a family of Christian street preachers. They were known for their
Christian street preachers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They were known for their fiery apocalyptic sermons, very similar to the gentleman that used to stand outside of Old Navy on State Street.
The old man that stood out in front of the Old Navy on State Street. There could be a tribe of him.
And their belief, they had this like hellfire theology where repentance was through suffering and total rejection of worldly comforts. That was the only way. Like you had to get rid of everything. And Michael and Rachel homeschooled their children, by the way. They traveled across the United States and abroad in a converted bus. And they were preaching on sidewalks at college campuses.
Why did they have
in public
kids?
Spaces. Look, you about to learn why they had kids. Quote, "What I care about is saving you because you are going to answer to God." Okay. Now, regarding homeschooling, Rachel said, "I can't fathom sending them off to strangers and strange spirits for 8 hours a day."
Okay.
Michael's message was centered on the idea that women should be subservient to men, that organized religion is dangerous.
He ain't even got no real job.
Thank you. That modern lifestyles are a sin, and that you should raise large families and live a minimalist lifestyle. This is literally Puritan Amish shit. Like no one.
Like in the current year, why would you do that?
So Rusty told Michael that he had
I forgot his name was Rusty.
No, Michael is the Warnecki. He's the mentor, the religious mentor.
Oh, he's nuts. Okay, copy.
Rusty's the husband. Or the boyfriend. So Rusty told Michael that he had met a girl and he knew that she was the one. And at the first meeting, Michael felt that Rusty shouldn't get married. He was like, I don't know. He was like, he said, look, I don't think young men are mature enough to take care of women and take care of these children, which he ain't wrong.
Okay.
Now, he said they require more character and more wisdom for that. And they can only get that from the Lord, which that's where he lost me.
You had me until you didn't. I was like, yeah. Oh.
I was present until I wasn't.
Hold on now.
He said, quote, you need to have a foundation in Jesus before you involve yourself deeply in the life of another person. I'm sorry.
Half of
this was from Rachel, who actually waited 5 years before she married Michael. She was like, he ain't ready.
He doesn't have a real job, did he?
I didn't look into Michael and Rachel. I was like, that ain't none of my business. They some weirdos. By 1992, Andrea and Rusty were living together. Now, Andrea was dealing with the guilt of not being married. Then on April 17th, 1993, they were married by a non-denominational minister. And she only ever slept with Rusty and would not wear her veil because she was not a virgin. So Rusty promised that he'd marry her again for their 20th anniversary. And he said he would, but only if she could still fit her wedding dress.
Strict.
Mind you, did you know she had a history of bulimia or not? Because see, that's rude.
Why would you say that to her?
That's rude. Did you know that she had a history of bulimia?
Same size for that long?
Like, do you know after children?
After Cheetos?
What?
Like, what do you mean I have to stay the same size?
Can we make that like a literal time frame, like BC and AD? Like, can we make AC after Cheetos? Be like when did you get off that weight? It was like 1995 AC. It was after Cheetos. So right after the wedding, Rusty bought a house in Friendswood, Texas, but the house was only 2,000 square feet. Too small for two.
He's like, if you stay skinny, you can fit in this
period.
house.
Too small for two and a baby. Because yes, Andrea was pregnant after 2 months of marriage. Fertile myrtle. Okay.
That's intentional.
The goal was to have as many children as God sent their way.
Does God send a check? Because who is paying for all of this?
Now, first was Noah. He was born February 26, 1994 at MD Anderson Hospital. Even though she was working until she gave birth, she immediately became a stay-at-home mom after giving birth and got pregnant again. And this time to John, born December 15, 1995.
Sagittarius.
Now, Rusty's job had him on the move. They wanted him to spend some time in Florida, so he rented out their home and moved his family into a trailer. They rented a 38-foot travel trailer and put all of their belongings in storage. Because they got rid of everything, by the time they got back to Houston, they eventually sold their home to the people they were renting it to and planted themselves halfway between Houston and Galveston. Now, Andrea's family and friends thought that this was beneath her. They were like, what is with the trailer park lifestyle? What's going on? What's happening?
Why are you living like this?
What's happening? And then on September 13th, 1997, she had another baby. Andrea had Paul.
Oh.
Now,
and then the names are getting worse.
Oh, Noah, John, Paul, all biblical.
All biblical.
By the spring of 1998, the Yateses learned that the Warreneckis were going to sell their motorhome and replace it with a sailboat.
Not a competition.
Yeah, duh. So they decided to head to Florida and to see if it would be a purchase worth exploring. So the idea was to emulate the Warreneckis, their nomadic lifestyle. Because, that's the goal of the evangelical Christians. You got to get rid of all your earthly possessions because none of it matters. Which the Yahtzee, I keep calling them Yahtzees. The Yateses admired because they liked the simplicity and the religious purity. But still, during the visit, the Yateses witness the Warreneckis family, and they thought, this is a bit extreme. This is a lot.
Really?
They were isolated. It was intense. It was too structured. It was way too structured. Michael thought that Rusty was a workaholic and that he was unwilling to give up his worldly possessions like he did when he decided to live on a bus and preach gospel. He said, quote, I believe Rusty was willing to sacrifice his wife and his children for the sake of his job. Michael also claimed later that Andrea was lonely and responsible for taking care of the children by herself. He said, quote, you can buy a person a house, but unless you fill that house with love, it's a tomb, baby. I mean, it's a tomb. He a hippie. It's obvious he's a hippie.
He was not with it.
Somebody used to do psychedelics.
This isn't real.
It's given psilocybin. It's giving now Andrea started to have conversations with Rachel about the book Hope for the Flowers. They used
I'm doing exactly what you told me not to do.
You are. They used the book to show how you should never work your life's you should never make your work your life's mission. The story follows two caterpillars, Stripe and Yellow, as they try to figure out the meaning of life. And so the Yateses moved into this new motorhome. And by the time Andrea visited the Warreneckis and returned home, Kirrah, she had her fourth child.
She needs to stop having kids.
Luke, on February 15th, 1999. At that point, her depression worsened. She was breastfeeding every 3 hours, and she was only sleeping a few hours a night.
And where was he? I'm sure somewhere
at work.
Knocked out.
At work. Now, Andrea called Rusty and asked him to come home on June 16th, 1999. He did. Now, my thing is about, let me just pause real quick, because here's my thing about NASA.
You can just ask him to come home.
And I don't know this to be 100% true, but I kind of got the feeling that this is what's going on with Rusty. NASA is one of those gigs. Some of those people be sleeping now.
That's why I was like, you can just ask him to come home.
Well, and not even that, but what I think is happening here, and I hate to sound like this because I don't know the culture of NASA, but I think where even Michael Warrenecki was getting at was that he knew that Rusty's job was going to require him to probably spend most of his days at work.
She got all these kids.
She got all these kids. And this nigga was like, I'm going to just sell my house. She could just be in this trailer with all the kids because I'm going to be at work anyway. So his comforts were like at work because, you know, as far as I know, most people who work at NASA, like, don't they sleep there?
Yeah.
Like, they sleep there, bathe there sometimes. Like,
I think it's almost like a fireman schedule.
Like, they kind of like have camp. Like, I mean, not camp, but like a fireman setup. Like, they have bunks and stuff like that. Like, sometimes you ain't gotta go home. So to me, I think he was just like probably thinking he was saving some money by not having a house and was like, well, she could just stay in this little trailer, not thinking.
But also, like, you work for NASA. I'm sure you're not making minimum wage.
Right. But he's like, what she need this big old house for? But then, like,
there's 15
I mean, it's very selfish. It's very selfish.
Because he's at work.
It's very selfish. Now, Andrea called Rusty. She asked him to come home on June 16th, 1999, which he did. And when he got home, she was in the back room of the bus in a chair, bent over, shaking her legs, and her hands and her legs were shaking uncontrollably. And she said, I need help. And what he didn't know was that Andrea was having a feeling, one she couldn't describe to him. Satan wanted her to kill her children.
First of all, Satan got the wrong person. Satan needs to be telling her to kill her husband.
Period. What?
But then
that escalated.
Like, why is he saying this now?
Look, so Rusty tried to comfort her and figured she was having a nervous breakdown. He was like, hey, look, I need you to take a walk. Now, he thought she just needed some fresh air. This woman is hysterical. Mind you, you would not know this was the late 90s. This feels like it's 1963. He said, I mean, like, let's be serious. Andrea is in this cramped motorhome. no personal space, 24/7 childcare, very few outside connections. Now, this is worsening her postpartum depression. She was isolated from friends. She was isolated from family. She wasn't getting medical care. She was spending almost all her time caring for the children in a very, very confined space. And the truth of the matter is after Andrea and Rusty bought their own motorhome, which was inspired by the Warreneckis, their lives took a turn that intensified Andrea's isolation, her stress, and her mental decline. And the teachings of the Warreneckis did not help. Andrea was already a devout evangelical Christian, but the Warreneckis' teachings deepened her perfectionism. She feared everything. She felt guilty
about listening to other people.
Thank you.
And try to actually
do what you need to do
life
for your own family. She feared everything. She was guilty about everything, and she felt unworthy. So the whole concept of like the world is evil and corrupt. Society, modern life, organized churches are seen as completely fallen. They're beyond saving. Salvation is extremely difficult to achieve. Most people, even many who call themselves Christian, are fake and will not be saved. Language like this is good for hyperbolic priests or preachers or whomever, because that's job security for them. If they tell you that the world is coming to an end, you'll always believe in the bullshit that they're saying. Only through absolute repentance, complete renunciation of the world, and living in constant suffering and humility can someone be truly saved. That's insane. Does that sound like save? That don't sound safe to me. Plot twist. Women also must be totally submissive. So women are seen as responsible for the downfall of mankind, by the way. A woman's role is strictly to serve her husband and to raise children.
I was going to say, and to have kids.
And to live modestly and silently.
And skinny.
Clearly. And any failure to be a perfect wife or mother risks leading others to sin.
So let me ask this.
Yeah.
Now that she's had a mental breakdown, does that mean they really not going to be able to renew their vows? Is that whole deal off? Yeah,
that's pretty much. Well, they're not gonna make it to 20. Put it to you that way. They're not gonna make it to the 20th anniversary.
Damn, son.
Yeah, you're not gonna make it there. Now, children must be raised righteously, or they are doomed. Parents, especially mothers, bear direct responsibility for their children's eternal fate. If a parent fails to raise their children perfectly in the fear of God, those children will end up in hell, and it will be the parents' fault. God damn.
That's so strict.
Harsh. Way harsh, Ty.
It's gotta be easier.
Way harsh, Ty.
Way harsh, Ty. You're a virgin that can't drop. Like, there's gotta be a better way to say that.
No. Michael, his wife, Rachel, and their 7 children lived on the road in a bus, surviving on street preaching donations. In my personal opinion, this man wouldn't be able to tell me shit. They rejected stable homes, mainstream education, regular employment, or anything that would tie them to quote unquote worldly living. They preached publicly on sidewalks, at festivals, in campuses, and warned people of imminent damnation. These are the worst people to have as friends.
Bring back shame.
Yeah. So Rusty didn't know what to do about Andrea, right? I mean, he understood space shuttles. He didn't understand this. And the next day, Andrea took 40 to 50 trazodone tablets.
I don't blame her.
They were sedatives prescribed for her father. This was absolutely a suicide attempt. Her mother found her in time to rush her to the hospital. And when she arrived, she was given a charcoal drink and stabilized.
A charcoal drink?
Yeah, to help kick out the toxins.
Oh.
Now, the reason for her admission was overdose. Doesn't want to die, but wants for the misery to go away.
She like, I just want my husband to get off work.
Now, Andrea lost 10 pounds in 3 weeks. She had no energy, poor eyesight, and poor concentration. She told the psychiatrist on call that she just wanted to sleep forever. The doctor figured that there was some sort of delusional guilt. The final diagnosis was a major depressive episode, single, severe, with high risk of suicide. She was placed on 1-to-1 suicide observation every 15 minutes and prescribed Ativan so she could sleep. And she was also prescribed Zoloft. She stayed in the hospital.
She's really gonna hate life.
She stayed in the hospital for about a week, and she was allowed to see the children as long as she was with the husband or family. She was ashamed. She couldn't even kill herself successfully. Andrea was sleeping, but she wasn't getting any better. She was experiencing catatonia. Now, catatonia is a serious neuropsychiatric condition that affects a person's ability to move, speak, and interact with the world. It can occur in the context of several mental illnesses like schizophrenia or major depression with psychotic features, and medical conditions, or even in neurological disorders. And Andrea was nearly mute at this point. And one of the social workers called Child Protective Services to inform them of the living arrangements of the Yateses, especially when she learned that Rusty allowed the 3-year-old to play with a power drill.
Oh.
Now, CPS didn't think this was dire and instead told the Child Protective Services people the social worker to contact the police because that type of complaint was outside of their jurisdiction since it didn't involve direct occurrence of abuse or neglect. She made the note and put it in Andrea's case file.
There's always a curveball.
Yep. Now, 2 days later, Andrea's Zoloft dosage was increased, and for some reason, Andrea, still very vague in speech, was now concerned about the hospital bill. The doctor's note stated, quote, her home and children may be more therapeutic, so they sent her home. After 7 days, Andrea was discharged due to insurance. They gave her Zoloft and sent her on her merry way. They were like, bye.
They're like, good luck.
Get out.
Hope you don't kill all your children.
Yeah. 3 weeks later, July 21st, 1999, Andrea tried to slit her own throat in the bathroom at her parents' house. She begged Rusty to let her do it. He admitted her again. He made an appointment for an evaluation, this time with a psychiatrist. Andrea had been inconsistent with the Zoloft and stopped taking the Zyprexa once she realized it was an antipsychotic. Now, her thoughts started to come back. She started to think the children were eating too much. She started scratching her head a lot. She retreated to the bathroom. She specifically wouldn't feed Luke. Like, her illness was progressing. And when she got to the hospital, she had scratches on her face, her head, and her arms and legs. Like, she was self-mutilating. Now, Andrea started to describe auditory and visual hallucinations. She told the doctors that 2 years prior, she had visions of a person being stabbed about 10 times over several days. This was after she had Noah, which was her firstborn. She blew that off. And she also told doctors she heard Satan's voice.
Where's her husband?
Yeah, work. He had work.
Okay.
Commanding her to kill the kids. And she was having obsessive thoughts about how the kids would turn out. Quote, the kids trying to train them upright, being so young, big responsibility. I don't want to fail, end quote. Now, adding the visual hallucinations, they ruled out schizophrenia. She was suffering from postpartum psychosis. This diagnosis is extremely rare, occurring in 1 to 2 of every 1,000 deliveries. It's higher in women who have a history of bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, or psychotic episodes of postpartum from previous pregnancies. Andrea was a candidate for ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. Surprisingly effective for very severe cases. But the Yateses didn't want to do that. Instead, they prescribed Haldol and Cogentin. Haldol is a powerful antipsychotic medication, and Cogentin was prescribed to eliminate some of the symptoms of Haldol, like tremors and twitching or blurred vision. In addition to this, she was also prescribed Effexor, XR, and Wellbutrin, which I've taken Wellbutrin.
I think Rusty, I currently take Wellbutrin.
Yeah. It just boosts the serotonin levels, kind of kicks you out of depression.
It works.
It works. Now, Rusty was impressed with the cocktail. Andrea was pretty much back to normal. And after 19 days, Andrea was discharged, but stayed on the partial hospitalization program for 11 days. And this time, partially in the 3-bedroom home in Clear Lake, Texas, because Rusty got rid of the bus.
Oh.
She was glad. After...
Well, she didn't. She probably should have just told him.
Thank you.
Hey, I don't think this is suitable.
You don't remember women supposed to be silent.
Oh, right.
Now, at her follow-up appointment, Andrea's new concern was addiction, drug dependency. She was starting to feel weak. By August 16th, 1999, Andrea wanted off the medication. Why? She wanted to get pregnant.
Why?
She wanted to get pregnant, and she wanted to homeschool the kids he had. The doctor wrote.
I thought y'all didn't want to do that.
Thank you. No, she definitely wanted to do that. The doctor wrote, "This will surely guarantee future psychotic depression." Now, my question is every woman meant to be a mother? No. I say no. Obviously. No.
Seems
because
not.
had she not, she would probably not be this crazy. Maybe, but maybe not. Because here's the thing. Like, she was probably already, she had some issues before she had the babies. She had like bipolar, probably. Maybe even schizophrenia, maybe. But the truth of it is that we do know we wouldn't have 5 lost, possibly, souls. You know?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have people out here doing vile things to people sometimes if you...
And to their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. If there are just some people that would just decide that I'm not going to breed. And mind you, she fertile and her brain ain't braining.
No.
Her mind don't work
It
right.
actually checked out.
And a lot of these things are also genetic. So if she were to have another child and that child ended up bipolar or schizophrenic, these things can carry on. And that's not to say that just because you have a mental disorder that you shouldn't have kids. But I'm just saying that there are some indications, like when she had Noah and she heard Satan. Yeah, that was probably that moment where you're like, yeah, we done.
And he just kept going.
Because I done heard the devil the other night. And I think, and they say with postpartum psychosis is that it intensifies after every pregnancy.
Well, yeah.
So has she been honest about what she was hearing with Noah? Right?
But it don't sound like her husband really cared either way.
Well, it's not about her husband. She wasn't being honest about what was happening after Noah. She didn't say anything until she was hospitalized after Luke. Luke was baby number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Noah is baby number 1. They didn't know that you were even having those hallucinations with baby number 1 until you had baby number 4. You should have said something after baby number 1.
Yeah.
I
She
would have
should
had
said something when her husband decided he wasn't going to come back home.
Yeah, I would have had baby number 1. I would have went to my follow-up doctor's appointments and I would have been like, you know what, doc? I would say between me and you, but I don't want you to say between me and you because I think we need a referral. Mm-hmm. I heard Satan last night. He told I'm seeing visions of somebody getting stabbed and it's happening over 10 days. It's just happening in my head or in real life. I don't know. And I'm hearing Satan and Satan is telling me to kill my kids. What do I need to do? And then from there, the doctor would have been like, Andrea, here's the thing. This is called postpartum psychosis. If you continue to have children, this will only get worse. And then we can stop having kids. Or we can continue to have kids and then continue to be crazy as hell. But either way, the choice is mine. But I will say that we cannot be surprised. At least we'd have a paper trail at baby number 1.
A paper trail. That's
now,
the most we can hope for.
That's all we can hope for. Because people. People like to do whatever people like to do, regardless of what people tell them to do, regardless of what the experts say. People do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
So by March 2000, Andrea was pregnant again.
Oh.
Sip.
March 2000.
When Andrea finally talked to one of her friend would later say that
she has friends.
Yeah,
you can't tell.
Andrea told her that she said all she saw was darkness, even when the lights were on.
Didn't none of them tell her to stop having kids?
Nigga. Now, when she tried to kill herself with a kitchen knife, she didn't see herself. When she tried to kill herself with the pills, she didn't want to. She felt like she was possessed. Satan had influenced her. Andrea went to scripture for guidance, and she felt like the best thing to do was to be stronger. Quote, Luke chapter 11, verse 24 through 26. When an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house swept clean and put in order. Then it goes and takes 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of that person is worse than the first. She wasn't reading the Bible for comfort. She was reading it like the set of instructions for spiritual warfare, filtered through these paranoid delusions and hallucinations. Andrea gave birth to Mary on November 30th, 2000.
Oh, a girl.
3 months later, Andrea's father died. Do you think she was okay after that? She wasn't. She was very close with her father. She blamed herself. Her depression kicked back in. But Rusty picked up on those signs because he's seen this before. By March, Andrea had what Rusty called the sewing machine leg, when she would pump her leg up and down, almost like an up and down motion of a sewing machine needle. And she started picking at her scalp again, which was a self-harm act that she developed to dissociate. She was even scared to put Mary down. She stopped eating, she stopped drinking, and then she stopped speaking. Then the hallucinations started, and she would not describe them because she wasn't speaking. So she went back to the doctor, and she went back to the doctor that treated her the last time. That doctor, whose name was Dr. Starbranch, recommended a mental hospital. This girl needed to be committed. Andrea was eventually admitted to the Devereaux, Texas Treatment Network under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. And Andrea refused to sign the consent form at first. Saeed applied for an order to administer psychoactive medication to the probate court due to the fact that Andrea could not make decisions, i.e., she would not speak, she wasn't taking the meds, she wasn't eating, and she wasn't drinking. And he knew that this would ultimately lead to her getting worse. The examining physician agreed with Saeed that she was a danger to herself and was not able to make decisions, but they did not say that she was likely to hurt others. He felt like she should be hospitalized until April 12th, 2001, then go on to partial hospitalization, then to the private treatment with Saeed. Finally, Andrea agreed after threats of being taken to the loony bin.
Not the loony bin. I mean, it took them long enough.
Now, at this point, April 4th, 2001, Andrea is still not eating. She refused to eat unless Rusty was present. And the only thing he would get her to eat drink is Ensure.
What is her attachment to him?
By her 6th day in the hospital, she was starting to speak in the therapy sessions. She said, quote, I have to go home and be a mother.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing she said.
She would speak, but would be mute when asked about suicide. Now, this hospital had Andrea watching a lot of substance abuse videos. Don't you need your patient to take medicine? Well, apparently, as part of the standardized patient curriculum, everyone, no matter the specific diagnosis, was required to watch educational videos about the dangers of substance abuse, the importance of medication compliance, and managing dual diagnosis, like if you had a mental illness and addiction. And Andrea was not a substance abuser. She wasn't refusing her medication because of addiction or rebellion. She stopped taking it because they had severe side effects. And her psychotic thinking sometimes told her that she didn't need them. On top of that, her religion encouraged her that getting better spiritually made more sense than medication. But regardless, they stuck to the plan. And on April 12th, after 10 days, she was discharged. No reference of her.
That don't seem like enough.
Nope. No reference of her harming others. She told Rusty she didn't want to go to the substance abuse sessions because they made her sad. So Rusty said, hey, we're leaving the outpatient program. She was discharged on April 18th. And guess what? She wasn't even there. She wasn't there anyway. All her medicine was prescribed except what? Haldol, which was the one medicine that kept her from going to Cuckoo Town. And that was the only one that worked. Saeed made it seem that she was better in the records, and she was not better at all. When her friend Debbie visited her on April 27th, which is what?
Ooh, today.
My birthday.
Today.
Andrea wanted her to pray for her. By May 3rd, Andrea was walking in circles and standing in front of the TV for 45 minutes straight for no reason. Rejecting showers, not talking, forgetting to feed the kids. And by May 4th, she was back in Saeed's office, catatonic, not speaking, not doing anything. Then guess what? She was readmitted to Devereaux. So he put her back on Haldol. Same thing. Doctor advised constant adult supervision and that she should not be left alone with the children, not even for short periods of time. She stayed for 11 days and she went back to the partial hospitalization program again for chemical dependency. This is pissing me off. Substance abuse videos. Substance abuse videos are usually when patients stop taking meds to get high or because of drug alcohol dependencies. Andrea's noncompliance was due to a psychotic denial and severe depression. No substance abuse lecture was ever going to address what was wrong with her. Rusty complained about this. He complained about the fact that there had been one session that day and it was focused on substance abuse. She was not a drug addict. What she was not taking her drugs. Why would you, knowing that this woman needs to take her drugs, be showing her substance abuse DVDs?
Because people aren't smart.
Makes no sense. The nurse suggested that he file a complaint. And after her release, she was complaining about the side effects of Haldol again. So she was taken off of it and was kept on Effexor. Effexor is an antidepressant. This woman is psychotic. Andrea complained about the side effects. You know what the side effects are?
Suicide.
Extreme sedation. Emotional flattening. Okay, she's numb. Muscle stiffness. That sucks. Restlessness. Okay. That sucks. But what they should have...
stiff and restless.
But
how can you be both?
That would suck. Could you imagine the urge to move and not be able to?
You're stuck in a dream.
Yeah.
Like you're just someone, your demon is in your corner.
Yeah, you stuck. That's why when some people take medicine, they say you just feel like you trapped in a void. But that's why that first doctor put her on Cogentin. To help with the side effects of Haldol. This doctor took her off of Haldol, then put her back on Haldol. And then every time she said she had a problem with the side effects, just took her off of Haldol. Doctors do this all the time. They put you on a pill to help with the side effects. Mm-hmm. It's like when they put you on a bad antibiotic. I heard they do this with white people, but nobody's ever done this to me before. Like when you get put on an antibiotic and the antibiotic causes yeast infection. They do this to rich white women. They'll put you on a pill that will offset the yeast infection. Nobody's ever offered that to me before.
I was going to say, that's the thing.
Yeah, but Susan told me that gets offered to her niece every time. I'm like, that has never been offered to me before. They just tell me to go get Monistat and go have a nice day.
They're like, well, sometimes that happens.
It's like, I've never had anyone offer me a supplemental pill to offset the yeast infection. That's wild. But with this woman, she was given a pill to offset And they said that it worked. So why not just give her the cocktail that you know that works?
Because they don't care about that woman.
Thank you. By June 18th, Rusty was still concerned. Andrea wasn't doing any better. Rusty was concerned she was declining. The doctor did not want her to go back on Haldol, citing it was, quote, a bad medicine. Haldol helped reduce her hallucinations and delusions. It was a critical part of keeping her stable. 2 days later, on June 20th, 2001, Rusty had left around 9 a.m. Dora, Rusty's mom, was supposed to come over to help watch the kids at 9:30. In that 30-minute window, Andrea filled the bathtub with water. Systemically, one by one, she drowned her children. John, 5 years old, was first. She held him under the water until he stopped moving. She felt sadness, but believed she had to act quickly to save him from hell.
Oh, huh?
Paul, 3, was next. Andrea held Paul under the water while he struggled and kicked. She admitted she felt guilty because she believed she was acting out of necessity, not anger. Luke, 2, was next. Luke came next. He was young enough. He didn't resist much. And Andrea described him as small and light. That didn't take long. Mary, 6 months, was the baby. She said that was the easiest and the hardest. Easy because Mary didn't resist, but emotionally hardest because Mary was so tiny and helpless.
Because it's a baby.
Andrea left Mary floating in the tub after the drowning. Noah, 7 years old, was the last. He was the oldest. He came in after she had drowned the others. Noah realized something was wrong when he saw Mary floating. He ran. He tried to escape. Andrea caught him. He begged her to stop. She forcibly drowned him. Noah was the hardest because he resisted and because he knew what was happening. Andrea laid the bodies of John, Paul, and Luke together on the bed, covering them with the sheet. She placed baby Mary's body in the arms of one of the brothers, Paul or Luke, depending on the report, and Noah's body was left floating in the bathtub.
Jesus.
After the killings, Andrea called 911 at 9:48 a.m. She was calm but direct, saying she needed a police officer to come to her house. Then she called Rusty. And when police arrived, Andrea confessed immediately and explained what she did. Officer David Knapp asked her, "Do you realize what you have done?" Andrea calmly answered, "Yes, I killed my children." Police and investigators noted Andrea was emotionless when recounting the killings. She cooperated fully. She never tried to deny or justify the murders. Her delusions were full blown and completely controlled her reality at that point. She asked the police if they thought that her children were in heaven. She never denied it, never blamed anyone else. She never tried to hide the details. And Andrea was arrested on the spot and charged with capital murder. Okay. Now, they sought capital murder for the deaths of Noah, John, and Mary. And prosecutors chose 3 counts to seek the death penalty because that was easier. And the defense pled not guilty because they figured they would get not guilty on the reason of insanity. Because obviously.
Yeah.
Now, the first trial took place in 2002. The prosecution's argument was that Andrea knew right from wrong because she called 911. She arranged the killings methodically. But the defense's argument was that Andrea was severely psychotic, that she was delusional. She believed that she was saving her children's souls. And Texas insanity law required proof that she didn't know her actions were wrong at the moment of the crime. They found her guilty of capital murder and sentenced her to life with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Ew. But here's the gist. Andrea's reasoning for this. She said that she killed the children to save them from hell. She believed she was a bad mother. She was spiritually corrupt, and that her children would grow up to be sinners and go to hell because of her. And by killing them, they were still innocent. She thought she was guaranteeing their salvation. Quote, "They were not righteous. They were going to stumble. They were not saved." When asked why she waited until that morning. She says she wanted to do it after Rusty left, but before her mother-in-law came. And she asked if she knew what she did wrong. And she said, yeah, but she still believed it was necessary to save their souls. Andrea was real calm during her confession. She wasn't hysterical. She wasn't angry. She wasn't incoherent. This led the police initially to just assume that she was just cold and calculating. She just didn't care. But then when they did the psychiatric evaluations, it made it pretty clear that she was just psychotic. And she showed no sense of saving herself. She fully expected to be executed. She believed her death would also kill Satan.
Now, how did she know for sure it was Satan? Like, I've always wondered this, and not like in a way that I want to like find out for myself, because I do not want to know.
I'm not asking for a friend.
No. But how do people know
that it's Satan?
That they're talking to Satan. Like they're hearing Satan. Like does he go, hey,
I'm Satan.
It's Satan, it's your boy.
You know what?
I think.
Yeah, this was a great podcast, guy. We're done. She just said, hey, this is Satan. It's your boy.
It's your boy. Back again on the ones and twos.
Beelzebub.
I'm just
out
saying,
here on the ones and twos.
Beelzebub. I just want to remind you, remember we talked? You're going to kill your kids.
Today. Yeah. You know what's crazy? When I was in school, I did a paper in my abnormal psychology class on people who hear the voice of God. And I had a theory. And what was it? People who experience, what was it?
Huh.
You may be asking. I think it applies to people who hear Satan too. My theory was that there is a auditory voice that we all have. Most of it is our own voice, right? In our head.
Yeah.
And then for people who are religious, there's a voice that they, when reading like religious texts, Bibles, whatever. And I think this happens from just things that we hear in general anyway. Like we just fill in the blanks. We just assume that this is what God must sound like. This is what Satan must sound like. And I think popular culture, whether it be movies, like, I mean, we've all seen Amityville Horror or Rosemary's, but you know what I mean? Like Rosemary's Baby or whatever. And I think somewhere we take all of that data, like our mind takes all of that data and we kind of like recalibrate it to create that voice. And then that voice turns into the voice. And that voice is the voice that we use to push us to do the thing.
James Earl Jones.
Basic. Well, okay. That's your voice that you pick.
Probably.
Okay. And so if your voice is going to be James
Either
Earl
that
Jones.
or Shaka Khan.
Period. Okay. Through the fire.
Yeah.
Through the
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so like if you decide, or if your mind has been hearing that voice and has calibrated your thoughts to say that, okay, I'm going to connect this command with this particular voice and say that it's Satan. Boom. Then it is, right? Because if it's like when you watch a horror film and, you know, like when a quote unquote trickster spirit is tricking you to believe that your mom is talking to you. Mm-hmm. All you need is the voice to be familiar. Mm-hmm. And if your brain has already told you that that's the assigned voice, then it is what it is. I just think that it's a trick that your mind plays on you. And when I wrote my paper, the voice of God aspect was just like this running database that we store of auditory cues over time that we pull from all different types of things that somehow we compile. Mm-hmm. And then when that person finally snaps, they either blend those voices or assign that voice and say that this is what God sounds like. That's what Satan sounds like. And then they just run with it. And then every command going forward, that's what it is. And then whatever the actual words are, that's something totally different. You know, I mean, that's the mental illness component. Mm-hmm. Now we could take it a totally different step. If you want to get real deep with it, there's also an aspect of like schizophrenia that I believe, or mental illness too, that I believe, where I believe that people are accessing a totally different dimension. Yeah. I think those people have the ability to see through a particular veil, see through a different level that us here are not able to see through. They're able to pierce through a particular veil, and they don't know how to actually understand what that is, because it may not actually be Satan. You know what I mean? Like, it may be themselves. It may be something else more nefarious. It may not be Satan himself. I mean, if you are experiencing religious psychosis and you just happen to be religious, you're going to fill in those blanks with the figures that you know of. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So if you don't know what that is, but you kind of have a feeling that that's got to be Satan, because I don't have the vocabulary to think that it's anything else, then it's Satan. It could be something totally different, you know? So, that's, I mean, crazy. it could be literally be just like an evil something else. It could be fucking ghost. I don't know. It could just be your mind playing tricks on you. But I think, but with religious people, because they're so indoctrinated in like these different symbols, figures, characters in that whole universe that is the biblical text, that sometimes they filter their reality through that on a whole different level, that is all they see all the time. Yeah. In my world, because I'm not religious, I may not automatically jump to Satan. I'll probably jump to some shit from a movie before I jump to Satan.
I'd be like, Scar? Is that you? I would not automatically assume the devil, that's for sure.
Be like, this could be anything.
Like John Goodman?
Voldemort?
John Goodman?
Not John Goodman.
Jim Carrey? Like, my first thought would not be the king of hell.
Right, exactly.
But I guess if that's one of your biggest fears, then okay.
Yeah, I mean, because then at that point, it's you filtering like what your knowledge of our existence is. Yeah. You know, like that's all you know.
If fuck around and it's just been rusty. What if
it was rusty? Yeah.
Like he wasn't actually at work. He was just in the attic. Yeah. And he like just placed speakers all over the house. Yeah. And it wasn't the devil. It was just rusty.
I watched this TikTok video of this girl who was schizophrenic, and she was trying to like explain what that looks like.
Oof, I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, and it's wild to think about like something being in your space that you know is not there. Like auditory and visual hallucinations. Something like not being physically in your space, but you seeing it. Like something's right there.
It's terrifying.
That is a lot. That's a lot. And she was explaining what they could be. She's like, because sometimes they're not always like physical people. They're just forms of things. Okay, so yeah, sorry. We had some technical difficulties. I had to start some things around. Makes zero sense, but whatever, okay. You got it. But no, what I was talking about originally was the auditory hallucination thing. And I think that part of this is, you know, people feeling like they're experiencing God and hearing God and things like that. Her hallucinations they were a big part. And because they happened so early, they should have really, really paid attention to them. She should have been more honest about them early. You know, it's like, that's not normal, lady. That's not normal. You experiencing, you know, thinking or even just kind of sort of thinking that you're hearing Satan is a problem, no matter how you spin it. And so I think that people who have that problem or who have that these afflictions, I think that they kind of like assign these voices to these figures. Like if you believe in Lord of the Rings, you're going to believe that you hear, you know, fucking Gandalf, you know, like whatever it is, you're just going to fill in the blanks. That's just kind of how I think it, you know? So anyway, moving on. Where was I? Now, after that whole shit show, after she felt like she was gonna kill Satan by being executed, her confession would ultimately matter in court because it showed that, these were premeditated killings, that she also didn't do it out of hatred or revenge, that she was operating in a completely different, mental universe, in a universe that was not normal. She was psychotic. This was what she considered an act of love. It wasn't cruelty. But the defense used the confession to show insanity. And the prosecution tried to argue that it showed that she knew right from wrong because of how she organized the bodies and because she called 911. And of course, in the media, at first, Andrea was treated as pure evil. She was labeled the most hated woman in America. Over time, as the truth of her psychosis began to come out, the public opinion became a little more complex, and it was more divided because it started to focus more on the mental health failings. Not everyone was as forgiving. Rusty Yates definitely took some heat because at first he was seen, sympathetically. And over time, criticism grew because it was revealed that psychiatrists, especially Dr. Saeed, had explicitly warned Rusty about this. And Rusty later claimed that he was never warned. He was never warned that Adria.
I knew nothing.
I knew nothing of the sort. He was never warned that Andrea was psychotic or dangerous to the kids. But Andrea told her prison psychiatrist that she had warned Rusty, and he dismissed her. He dismissed her fears, and he pushed their religious beliefs about having more children onto her.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah. And even after the drownings, Rusty held on to unrealistic hopes at one point, imagining that they could have more kids through surrogacy or through adoption.
What was his obsession with having kids?
Why
do men think that their one seed?
Yeah, they're obsessed with that. Now, before finally, it's a true obsession because the reality of it is men aren't really the creatives of life the way they think they are.
No, which is crazy to me because I'm like, oh, you do nothing really.
Yeah. I hate to say it, they offer a pump and dump.
Yeah.
And they, how do I say this without offending everybody?
You probably can't.
The truth of it is, there is now, and we see it now in politics, this fear that women will realize that they're more than just a birth canal. And so the patriarchy has to be as strong, if not stronger than it was before, because now women are more educated and more, everything, and so we got to continue to populate the earth. It's like, yes, well, educated women still have kids. Like, what is the fear? Women that work still have kids. What is the fear?
According to all of the traffic that I drive through, we don't need to continue to populate the earth.
No.
I think we're full.
I mean, we're pretty stocked up.
The club is closed.
The club. And also, and there's more research into this. There is something that's called parthenogenesis that they've been researching, that is the egg fertilization without sperm.
Yay. Finally.
Yeah. It's not quite available to humans yet, but it is something that exists. And the truth of it is that in other species, there is a way to procreate without men, right? Like, we have all the tools. I mean, women hold on to the mitochondria energy in order to populate the globe if need be. And I think men have realized, we've all realized through science, that if shit got really real, if there were only women on the planet, we'd figure it out, I just feel like men are starting to just feel like they are no longer, and with religion, and religion has, completely and totally diminished women to a point where they are absolutely no value other than to procreate. I think that nowadays, especially with like them trying to roll back the abortion laws and all that other stuff, it's kind of like, dude, we can walk and chew gum. There are so many women who work and have kids. Like, you do not have to be the breadwinner.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be held up in the house like that. Like Andrea Yates was literally working. She was working in a cancer center. She was a nurse before she was this.
Then she became a baby factory.
Yeah, then she was a freaking breeder.
Lost her mind because she was only able to be a baby factory.
Yeah, and maybe that's just not what was meant for her.
That's not what's meant for anybody, really.
No, I don't think that's natural. I mean, no matter how much they try to convince people that, that's what women are supposed to do. It's like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. You all say that. It isn't.
Like, who actually made that decision?
The religion did.
That's all we were capable of doing.
Religion did.
Well, all we were necessary.
All that women are capable of ever doing is procreating. That is insane.
Is procreating.
Women are smart. Women are capable of doing a lot of great things and contributing a lot of great things to society. And it's the only thing that we contribute is like, children are not the only thing that we contribute to society. It is the one thing that we contribute for sure, but it is not the only thing. And so anyway, so Rusty got ran through the mud, and he claimed, of course, that he didn't know what was going on, because why not? Even after the drownings, Rusty held on to unrealistic hopes at one point that they would have more kids. And then the columnists and like a lot of talk show hosts were like, he was naive at best and negligent at worst. He sometimes minimized Andrea's illness in early interviews, saying things like, she was a good mother who just snapped. Oh, okay. He later defended his choices by saying he didn't understand how serious psychosis really was, which many people saw as willful ignorance. The medical industry also took a hit. Postpartum psychosis is a psychiatric emergency. It requires aggressive treatment. It requires long-term hospitalization, and it requires strong antipsychotic medication. Andrea was hospitalized briefly. She was stabilized with medication, and then she was quickly discharged twice, despite being very, 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 very psychotic. And after her hospitalizations, her doctors, especially at Devereaux Hospital, told Rusty she needed constant supervision. Who enforced this? No one. No healthcare nurses, no intensive therapy, no regular in-home psychiatric visits, nothing. And then her meds, Haldol, her antipsychotic drugs, was discontinued by Dr. Mohammed Saeed at the outpatient appointment on June 4th, 2001, just 16 days before the drownings. He stopped Haldol because Andrea complained about the side effects, but he didn't replace it with another antipsychotic drug. He left her with just antidepressants, knowing that she was psychotic as hell. Additionally, there was very little effort to educate Rusty or any other family member about the true dangers of postpartum psychosis. Rusty, despite being warned to supervise Andrea, seemed to think that her problem was just like depression. It wasn't active and it wasn't lethal. And so in 2001, postpartum psychosis was not understood, even by most doctors, and many medical industry professionals treated it like severe depression. And when in reality, it was closer to acute schizophrenia, including his hallucinations, delusions, and total breaks from reality. Also, insurance and hospital policies pushed people out of the hospitals. So shorter psychiatric stays, even when patients were dangerously unstable. So Andrea Yates should have been hospitalized for months. She should not have been hospitalized for days.
For 10 days.
If the medical system had responded with the intensity required for severe psychosis, the drownings could have possibly been prevented. Now, oddly, during one of the trials, the movie Seven came up. The defense psychiatrist referenced Seven to show how Andrea's brain was collecting external religious imagery. And it helped prove that she wasn't thinking rationally. She was lost in a world of like this hellfire and brimstone shit. And it happened. I mean, it helped to prove that she wasn't thinking. She was lost in a world and she was watching this movie. Now, psychiatrists later found that the elements of the movies fused into her delusion. She became obsessed with the idea of sin and inevitably destruction, and believed her children might fall into deadly sin as they grew older. She internalized the concept that people must be punished for their sin to save their souls, similar to the logic of the movie. Then there was another medium.
Why was she watching that movie anyway?
Period. It's like, that's the one movie that you should not be watching. Now, there was the media mix up, because I'm like, aren't you religious? Because Seven is very...
It's very not religious.
Yeah, that's a secular film. Then there was a media mix-up that hit a little close to home. Okay, in 2005, her conviction was overturned due to Dr. Park Dietz, the prosecutor's expert, who gave false testimony about a non-existent Law and Order episode. Andrea supposedly watched this Law and Order episode. Now, he testified that shortly before the killings, an episode of Law and Order aired where a woman drowned her children and was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, he suggested that Andrea may have watched the episode, learned how the insanity defense worked, and used it as a blueprint. Okay. Now, this fit the prosecution's narrative, but Andrea planned the killings to get an intent she planned the killings to get this insanity defense. That would mean that she knew right from wrong, which would effectively defeat the insanity plea in Texas. But the episode that Dr. Dietz described never existed. No Law and Order episode involving a mother drowning her kids and being acquitted by reason of insanity had ever aired before the murders. So Dick Wolf's office issued a statement through NBC saying, quote, "There was no episode of Law and Order that depicted a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted by reason of insanity."
I can actually say that there wasn't. The amount of times that I've watched Law and Order, I'm like,
I know that to be true.
I would never, never seen such a thing.
Yeah. And even though I work for Dick Wolf and I never seen an episode of Law and Order, I've never seen an episode. I've probably seen maybe 2 episodes of Law and Order.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You've never watched SVU?
You know what I used to watch? That's a lie. What I used to watch was Criminal Intent.
Oh,
I used to watch Vincent. I used to watch Vincent D'Onofrio's back in the day. Yeah. I know. Blasphemy. Now, the appeals court ruled the false testimony could have influenced the jury. Conviction was thrown out and a new trial was ordered. Andrea's defense team filed for appeal, arguing that false expert testimony had poisoned the jury, and Andrea's conviction was overturned. She was retried in 2006, and without the false Law and Order episode shaping the jury's thinking, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. So Andrea is now 60 years old, and she is currently institutionalized in Caryville State Hospital.
She spent her whole life crazy.
Yeah. Rusty and Andrea divorced in March 2005. And
he had the nerve to leave.
Yep. And he remarried and had one son. He's been divorced from his new wife since 2015.
He's also one of those people that should never remarry.
Yeah. And that's the story, terrible story of Andrea Yates.
It's dark.
It's dark. I felt like I wanted to do this. I was like, I hated the idea of like doing this at the eve of Mother's Day, but also at the eve of my hysterectomy. But also at like, I just wanted to have a real life conversation about like, just like, we need to stop forcing women to have children, because not all conditions are children friendly. And, I know that some people want them, and I think that it's safe to maybe adopt, but there are some people who are chemically not, biologically not able to do that. Andrea may have been the type of woman that maybe she should have adopted. You know what I mean? She should have remained not that she couldn't have been a mother, but maybe she should have adopted. but we know biologically the act of physically having children caused a chemical hormonal imbalance that affected her brain, that ultimately led to this postpartum psychosis from years of possibly chronic depression anyway. She had history of depression in the past, bulimia. I mean, I don't know her earlier diagnosis because it doesn't seem like she had an earlier diagnosis. I mean, we know that there was possibility of bulimia, but that's pretty much it. And we know that, she was quiet. We know that she spent a lot of time alone. She was isolated. I mean, the only other thing they said is she just seemed to be slightly depressed. But we don't know what that was. Mm-hmm. So, but what we do know is postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis is more likely with women who struggle with bipolar disorder or has schizophrenic tendencies. And then if you have that first baby and you find out that you struggle with postpartum, the first baby, the likelihood with the subsequent babies is higher. So I think people just need to pay attention to these things, because sometimes you don't know until you have the first baby, and a lot of people just like with her, she just ignored it.
I mean, well, the problem is too, like some of those mental health problems like bipolar and schizophrenia don't actually come and become a thing until something tragic happens. Yeah. That's just like triggering to your
Snaps.
brain. Mm-hmm. And then you just eventually snap. So people do need to start paying closer attention.
Yeah. You need
the first time you
pay
snap,
attention to your
third.
thoughts. Yeah. And I mean, to me, honestly, I think what muddied the waters with her too is because she's so religious. Mm-hmm. I think if it was like me or you and we had a baby and we were like, I don't know, nigga, I woke up and I saw somebody being stabbed 10 times, we'd be like, okay, we're not religious.
You're telling me you heard the devil and I'm be like,
you ain't supposed to be hearing no devil.
That don't sound normal.
But with religious people who already feel like they hear the voice of God, who already worry about the devil, who are already concerned about possession, who are already concerned about these religious experiences, they just thinking this is all a part of this religious world, right?
Which also shouldn't be.
Right.
Like, just because you're Christian, that doesn't mean you start hearing voices of the devil.
True. That's true, too.
Like, it just shouldn't even be a thought where it's like, oh, I'm really religious. That's why I can communicate with the devil.
Nah. No. Yeah.
What?
No, actually.
I believe in the dead. That don't mean I can communicate with zombies.
Like, once I start having seances, I have reached a different
place. Yeah, you're in a different realm now.
It's a different status.
It's a whole new problem.
I'm at a different level now once you start talking to ghosts. So I think that with her, I think what muddied the waters is the religious aspect. And then not even just being Christian, being so strict Christian made it 5 times worse. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But yeah, my mama gave me this idea. I had never heard about her. I thought it was interesting in light of everything, and also in light of me, because that's how it came up too, is because I had that comment. Comment did go viral, but it was like one of those comments I kept getting comments on, and people were like, oh, I think it's just really weird that you're saying that you don't like kids, to which I would like to just very quickly explain what I mean when I say that. It means what it sounds like, but it doesn't mean I have an inherent dislike for them, as in I will harm them. I think that's the distinction that people, so I don't like peas, right?
Okay.
That does not mean that I go to the grocery store and I'm like, I'm gonna knock all these peas off the shelf.
Imagine going to the grocery store and just knocking over all the kids.
It's I hate these peas so much, I'm gonna knock all these peas off the shelf.
I'm gonna knock all these kids over.
Never had that.
Kids knocking them down.
Don't have that experience. Don't have that feeling at all. But when you say you don't like kids, people for some reason associate this to harming them, hurting them, hating them. But then on the flip side of that, I'm like, but think about also all the people who claim that they do like kids, but their intention is to actually hurt them.
Or people that like kids and smack M&Ms out of their hand at the grocery store. Like, you like kids, but you yelling at them nonstop. And they can't have candy. Do you really like children?
It's like you clearly hate kids because you don't want them to be happy.
You threaten to smack them every 6 seconds, yet you like kids.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I mean, that's my point. Is like, you cannot just assume that just because I don't like children, that my goal is to physically harm them. That just means that I don't particularly desire their company. I love humans. I do. I honor them as human beings. When they become of age, rock with them. I'm not crazy about teenagers either, but at the end of the day, whatever. I'm not walking around slapping teenagers. You know what I mean? Like, people.
I'm not a fan of old people.
You've been saying that since you were a kid.
I've said that for a long.
You have been saying that for a long time.
And I have my reasons.
And you have your reasons.
But does that mean I go around pushing George, the 85-year-old neighbor, down the stairs? No. That just means I'd rather not interact with them.
I would never do anything to harm them. I would never do anything to upset their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I'm not
nothing.
gonna go burn down a nursing
That's
home.
not what people.
That's not my immediate reaction.
That's not what people mean.
I cannot like things and just not interact with them.
I just don't want them. I just don't want the kids in my house like that.
I just don't want your old people around me.
I just don't want old people sitting across from me. I
just aggressively stare
I don't
at
like
old
to watch
people.
them chew.
I knocked the pancakes off the table as I walked by.
But yeah, she was like, I mean, this one girl was like, I just mean disliking any group of people is just like insane. I was like, and you're a white girl talking to a black woman? That's insane. Like, what are we doing?
How dare you tell me what I can and can't like?
Like, who are you talking to?
How dare you?
How dare you? It's like, and then obviously, like, what did a kid do to you? I'm like, kids don't have to do anything to me not want to be around. It's okay for me not to want to be around them. Look, they are fragile beings. That's okay. Also, I just associated with everything else. I don't always desire particular colors. You like cats. I'm not a fan of cats, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have a cat in my home. Does that mean I walk around kicking cats? No. Do I think they're cute? They're beautiful. They're beautiful species. I love cats. I love babies. I think babies are so cute. When they're not
Newborn babies are not cute.
But when they're not here, though.
I like kids when I can give them back.
And when they're not crying.
Yeah. When I don't have to pay for them, I really like them.
Like holding them. That whole little cute shit. Like, adorable. I love shopping for kids. I love buying gifts for kids. I love all that stuff. Having them in here, wild.
I do like giving kids back, though.
Yep. Returning them to the parents.
Oh, you're so cute. Tap on the head. You go on back to your mother.
And I'm going to tell you who was in my comments agreeing with me. Teachers.
Oh, well, yeah.
Teachers and parents. Parents was like, the only kids I like are mine.
But also, it's always the people that like don't have kids.
That'll be the
people that are
most
never
offended
around kids and have never been around kids.
The people who don't have kids that want kids are the most offended by that statement.
You have no reason to not like children.
Why
Have you ever
like
met kids?
It's like,
have you ever met kids?
Literally the next day, me and Mama went to Pancho. We were getting obviously Mexican food. This girl was sitting next to me, kid on her lap. There was food all over the floor, napkins everywhere.
Good time ruined.
Literally. Baby on her lap, screaming in my ear. And I was like, and this is what I'm talking about.
But you know
really, I just hate how terrible you all are as parents.
I was going to say, I love kids. What I hate is adults.
Yeah.
Y'all get on my nerves because you're dumb.
You I will harm.
You're the problem. That girl sitting there letting her baby cry.
In my ear.
Throwing guac all over the floor.
In my beans. Just beans and rice all over
everywhere.
the place.
People are dying, Kim.
Yeah.
And look, the beans are on the floor.
Look.
That's a bean.
That's $9 worth of beans right there.
That's beans.
You know how much avocado is about to be right now? You playing around with these avocados?
The tariffs are bringing us down, yet this baby is throwing beans.
We are terrified right now.
But no, for real, stop trying to pressure people into having kids, and stop trying to make people like kids. I love kids, but I don't want to pay for none.
Period. I don't want to pay for none.
And stop asking me
not
when
in this
I'm
economy.
having kids either.
And I'm not getting with somebody who just want me to be a baby farm. Like if you rock with me to just rock with me, cool. And here's the thing too. I would like to say this for the record. I'm saying this right now. I'm about to have a hysterectomy. That does not mean that when I turn 55, I won't up and decide and be like, look, I wouldn't mind adopting a kid in need. Who knows? I don't know. I do things when I feel like it. I don't know. But what I know right now is under these current conditions, the earth is stupid. The world is dumb. We don't even know if we are going to have an earth in 20 years.
In 20 seconds.
The Department of Education is being systemically dismantled. I don't have a Social Security. I don't have a retirement right now. Like the world is screwed. I can barely support myself. My retirement plan is after everyone around me is dead. If I'm not dead first, arsenic.
Not to mention, uniform pants are like $30.
Period. Like, I'm going to put in the will. Like, once I'm hospitalized, do not resuscitate.
No, you ain't got to CPR me.
Not aura.
You can go ahead.
No, do not. Just let it go. Let it fly.
Let it go. It'll be fine. I'm not going to know the difference no way.
I won't be here to tell you not to.
Yeah. And you can do whatever you feel like is left of my organs. Yeah. Need, but I don't know what's going to be left.
I'm not using. What am I gonna say? And more importantly, like I'm just like this whole idea, like who gonna take care of you? Like, what you mean? So you telling me you having kids just so you have somebody take care of you? So you're having kids just so you have a caretaker is wild.
Yes,
that's wild.
Yeah, people have kids so that they have someone to get up and get the remote control.
Period. So you basically like, could you go get me the Ben Gay?
Who gonna pass down my legacy?
No, you don't have one.
There isn't one.
You don't have a... You work at Amazon, Gerald.
You don't have a 401k.
You work
I don't think you have a legacy.
Amazon, Gerald. You got $70,000 in your retirement
and not
account.
even
you
to
don't
like,
have a legacy.
Not even to just, say that everyone is worth nothing, but I am saying...
Everybody's pretty much worth nothing now.
A lot of people... I will say 95.99997% of us are worth nothing.
The average American has less than $2,000 in their savings account. You're pretty much legacy-less.
I can merch.
Unless you're out here selling crack, I don't even think crack is a thing anymore for real. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, be for real. But if you have kids and you plan on having them, kudos to you. Good luck to you. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm just saying that not every person can do it physically, mentally, economically. The situation is not for it. And I'm tired of answering this question. I've had so many people be like, but you sow this, or you sow this, or you sow that, you sow blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
now I can be that longer because I don't have kids.
Now I can be that freely.
Thank you for reminding me of all the things I'm capable of doing.
Thanks for reminding me for the reasons to continue to not have kids. And the thing is like the people that do have kids, like I'm grateful for those people. Like I'm grateful mom chose to have us. Like that's a beautiful thing.
I don't really care. I didn't ask to be here.
But at the same time,
I kind of just fell. So it's like I wouldn't know the difference either way.
I wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known. I didn't ask her to have me.
But regardless, consider the life I've had. I'm grateful. And I just feel like if I were to have a partner and if my life was normal up to this point, maybe I feel differently, but it has been pretty like cool just doing what I've been doing. So I'm going to continue to ride this bitch out.
My life is normal and I have a spouse and we are still trying to keep control of our two cats.
Exactly. I mean, and Luna is crazy. Like she's literally insane. She's a lunatic. Like I can't even imagine dealing with her half the time. Like could you imagine if she was a whole person that grows up to go to college?
Messy.
She would be in a mental institution.
Messy.
I would put her away.
You probably still should.
She'd be one of those kids that would eventually have to go to private school.
Oh. Oh. Oh man.
The universe just messed me up because I hit my knee. But the universe was like, okay, we get it. Shut up. All right, y'all. This was wonderful. Thank you, Kirrah, for coming back.
You'll never see me again.
Yes, again, Kirrah the Spotted Leopard. She is her new mob name is Spotted Leopard.
Don't tell him that. If it's my mob name, how's everyone supposed to know? You're so bad at it.
She's a spotted leopard. We gotta get something to eat, and I'll see you all on the flip side. I'm gonna be better because I'm about to go on hiatus. I would say I'm gonna be better. I make promises these days that I really don't keep. So
I don't know why you keep making them.
I don't know why either. Well,
no one asked.
I try to make them to kind of like keep myself on a level, but now I just be breaking them left and right. I'm so unreliable.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's true. Bye.